The only thing that happens in '82 that becomes so historic and so unbelievable is the Junior Chamber of Commerce. Their two co-chairmen that year was a guy named Scooter Clippard and a guy named Charlie Warfield. I'm an assistant. Gil Gideon is the director with the association. Scooter comes to meet with Gil and I about the Junior Chamber sponsoring the, quote, championship game. Now, if you can imagine this, the two teams in the finals in AAA are going to be Gallatin and Lincoln County. And in walks Gallatin and Lincoln County for what is the largest crowd probably ever in a high school football game at that time. The atmosphere was unbelievable. Press box was full, everything you can imagine. It had the atmosphere of a huge college game, and here sits Gallatin and Lincoln County playing in the championship game. Now you turn around and add to that as it's going to go, that we're going to go down to the very, very last point, and then we're looking around and the stadium is full at Vanderbilt. What happens with that was such a major event in '82 in terms of what took place. The crowd was unreal. It exceeded anything beyond expectations. It literally was the start of the, quote, total evolvement of the TSSAA playoffs.
We went down to the field at the end, didn't we?
We did. We were on.
Overtime.
That's the way I ended up with the ball.
That's right. That's a great story, and what's happened with the ball. Somehow the player threw the ball that scored, and you caught it. What?
I was down there. Tim Johnson, as you said, ran it in, and I was down there. I guess you were too, and I must have been on one side and you the other. But Tim runs the ball in, and throws it to the official, who hands it to, I can't remember who it was, but one of the people that were working with us, who hands the ball to me, and I don't know what to do with the ball, so I took it home. And it sat in my garage for a number of years. Coach P had come and was the head football coach there. And one day I walked in the garage and saw the football and said, this football doesn't need to be here. So I went down and went to Coach P and said, Coach P, I got a football from your past, and I'm giving it to you, and you can do whatever you want to. I said, this is the football that won the state championship. And he says, how did you get it? So I told him briefly. I said, it's yours, and you do whatever you want with it, but I know what you'll do with it. So he took the football, went to the locker room. About 3 minutes later, Tim comes running out and starts with the football and telling everybody about him running it in. So it's sort of unique that how people can get connected again, wow. I think.
Well, there's a trainer there that was helping Huntsville Hawks, that was helping the Hawks. His name was Glenn Nunley. Well, I found out that he was the head coach at Madison Academy. I got to talking to him. So we would practice at night, like at 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night, and play on Saturday nights. And he said, would you mind coming out and helping me with my offensive and defensive lineman? I said, no. And so my little mind, I figured that he had a good coach, and so I was just going to give him some pointers and stuff. So I show up the next day at practice. Well, it's Coach Nunley, about 28 players, and one other guy standing there. And so I said, well, he must be coaching the offensive line or something. And so Coach Nunley was talking to him. He said, I want to introduce you to Louis Thompson. Said he's going to be working with the linemen. And I said, okay. And so he blew the whistle. He said, all you linemen go down there, Coach Thompson. And so we take off, and I'm running down the field with them, and I've got about 15 players, 14, 15 players. And I'm thinking, okay, well, he hadn't told me anything about what we're doing. So we just started lining up doing one-on-one drills just like I did at Alabama. Well, after about 10 minutes, I had all of them laying on the grass, and they were just about to pass out and was crying and everything else. I feel this tap on my shoulder. I turn around, it's Coach Nunley. He said, how's it going? I said, Coach, these players. He said, you might ought to ease off just a little bit. So I got indoctrinated real quick about that, but that was my first day actual coaching football.
But we all decided we'd go together to UT Knoxville. And we got up there, and it's a funny story. We were in one of the gyms one night running a basketball games, and we were winning a lot of games, and pick up ball. And the next thing you know, at the end of that evening, we had some guys that played for the Tennessee Vols that were there, and we got to play against them. We did pretty good. When the evening ended, the graduate assistant coach for the Lady Vols pulled us to the side and asked us if we'd be interested in running the scout team for Coach Summit. And of course, we were like, sure, And so we did that. We met with her, and then we met with the assistant coaches once a week, and we sort of we ran the stuff that the teams they were going to play that week. And that was an amazing experience. The rumors you hear about Coach Summit and how hard her practices were and the stare and all those things. Well, I saw it all. I saw the trash cans in the four corners of the gym when she was mad and upset at them. She scared us a few times, to be honest with you. She would always tell us that she had 3 rules for us. She said, don't jump to block a shot. You're more athletic than our girls. Don't do that. Don't try to take a charge. She said, that's stupid. Why a big old boy like you want to take a charge on one of these girls? And number 3, don't you dare hurt one of my girls.
You're going to officiate just like anything else in life. You're going to miss some calls. But you need to make sure that if you make a mistake, you learn from it, as I said. And it's just part of being an official. And as I stated earlier, there's going to be no game if we don't have officials. And that's the reason, well, I don't know that that's the reason in the back of our minds that the five boys started that way. I think we started officiating because we just thought that's what we were supposed to do. But I think as we grew into it, and I think as most officials grow into it, they're giving back something that they got from the game. I think football as a team sport teaches a lot of young men and in some cases young women great things in life, how to cope with life and how to move on. And I think most officials are trying to do that. I think in some cases we have officials who are in it just for the money, and the money is not bad, but if you're in it for the money, then you're in it for the wrong reason. But I think the majority of our guys are in it to make sure that the sport is able to carry on.
And the AD, who was my boss, the football coach, he pretty well told me I was going to be the wrestling coach. But they sent me, he and the headmaster sent me to a clinic in Iowa that Dan Gable ran for a week just for coaches. And that area of the world was so far ahead of Tennessee in the South, and particularly at that point that a week with Dan Gable, I felt like I was on par knowledge-wise with about 75% of the high school coaches. And it didn't take long. You get beat a couple times, you make a real effort to find out why you got beat. And if you're going to survive, you'll get better.
My oldest son had gone out to Peru State in Nebraska, and that's where he got his coaching start. The first year they're out there, things are good, and everybody's happy. They've got a chance to make the playoffs, etc. The second year, injuries just destroy them. They lose their quarterback right off the bat. And what looked like to be a promising year, all of a sudden, it's downhill and downhill fast. The one thing that I watched happen were the coaches turned on each other. When the coaches turned on each other, then the players for those positions turned on the players from the others. It's the offense's fault. They can't score. It's the defense's fault. They can't get the ball back. It destroyed their culture, I guess would be the name which you would use. When we're going through the years where we went 0-10 back to back, my number one goal as the head coach became, keep us together. Don't let the coaches turn on each other. And if the coaches won't turn on each other, then the players won't either, because they're going to follow their position coach. That was my number one goal.
Well, I had an old guitar that was tuned, and I kept it in my office. And sometimes these little guys interested that maybe knew a few chords, or not, maybe I taught them a few along the way, and they would come play my guitar in my office, and you know, it was theirs to play if they wanted to do that. And you know, we had a teacher over at our school named Ms. Luckadoo. Ms. Luckadoo, she was into birding. She would take her binoculars out, and the kids would go out on the campus and watch birds. That was her forte. And I really think that that's important to sort of share with other students something that interests you as well. And
I was mostly concerned with the Viet Cong, and I'll explain that when I say that. When I first flew into Da Nang in '67, I guess, it's hard to remember that, the first thing I noticed was the coffins stacked 2 stories high. We don't know, nobody knew where he or she would be going. I was sent south to Chulai, where I operated out of the Quang Nai area. And that's where that horrible event occurred, where those, at My Lai, where everyone was killed in the village, men, women, and children. And I made a note of that in my documentary that was had. We won a film festival. I say we. Laird Jackson, Lehr, was my buddy that I met in Vietnam, and we stayed lifelong friends.
I loved high school sports, still do, and to watch, to be a part of that, and to know the people who are administering things at TSSAA was a great thrill. And I was out of coaching now, so that was my sports outlet. There was pretty much being a full year-round fan of high school sports.
Columbia State historically has had one of the better fields around at that time, and did a lot of tournaments. The junior colleges would come, and the high school, Columbia Central High School, played at Columbia State. So when people would come in, and we were the grounds crew, we'd repair the mounds and plates, and literally people would say, I wanted my mound like Columbia State's, and would you come do it? So word of mouth, and it just one led to another, and knocked on a lot of doors. Dave Nassipany with the sounds was a big help. He was really good. So, and there's not a lot of people that want to share stories about how they do their job, especially groundskeepers. They just most people take it for granted that the field's going to be good for the sounds. But that was one way, and then those guys helped me get into spring training sites. And so again, it's just relationships and word of mouth, and that I've been truly blessed.
I'll take you back just a minute to the Clinic Bowl. We were in a meeting in the auditorium at the high school one day, and somebody asked Coach Meadows, said, what do you think about a new stadium for the high school? He said, get me a new stadium and I'll get you a state championship. I was sitting beside him at the time. I never will forget him saying that. and true to his word, 82 championship. But that was, I think, we played at Vanderbilt before 27,000 people, and I think they turned the lights out in Fayetteville that night when everybody left town.
And that was the good thing about being in Franklin County. And I think one of the reasons I chose to stay there so long is because I had control of the program. And, you know, as far as money being spent, I could do what I wanted to do and those kind of things. And I talked to other coaches who didn't have that situation. And they would be frustrated with it, but in our case, that was a big plus. I remember one time Coach Thompson and I had a game that got postponed because of rain and had to move to Saturday night. So I got up real early on Saturday morning and drove to Smyrna for drill, left a little early, came back home and got my butt beaten overtime that night. So there were some good times and bad times.
My assignment was to cover Arnold Palmer that day. So on the first tee, I was standing there as he teed off, and I walked 18 holes with him. And when it was over, I mean, it was a day that reached into the low 90s. And of course, those pro senior players were riding the cart. When we got back, his caddy came out from under the ropes and came over to where I was standing and says, "Mr. Palmer would like to see you." And so he took me back over. I went on the ropes and stood on the 18th green. And he said, "You've stayed with me all day. All these other people from the media over here have just picked me up on the 17th hole." He said, "You can ask me anything and we'll talk here as long as you want to, and I'll answer anything you got to say." And said, "You know, I just feel like I owe that to you." And that was real impressive.